Hello.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the stream.
Welcome. We are super glad you're here
Super glad you're here.
on this very
Um,
strange day.
if it's your first time here, this is Story Club. This is Wednesday Sci-Fi Story Club. Sarah Ray Warner and I are working our way through this anthology of science fiction stories. We're here every Wednesday. Usually, there's exceptions, but more or less Wednesdays this time, 3 p.m. EST. And we're working our way through these stories. Sarah and I are both writers. We'll do some proper introductions momentarily. But the larger project of Story Club is to engage with these science fiction stories as readers and also as writers to learn from them. So, if that's your jam, we stream these on Sarah's YouTube channel, on my YouTube channel. We've got a Discord going. We'd love to have you. Takashi is first. Hello, Takashi. So
Welcome.
if you're in the stream, I'm so curious. We're doing a little poll this time around. I've got this little ticker on the bottom crossing the screen, and it says on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate this story? Today, everyone, we're reading a story called Mechanopolis by Miguel de Unamuno. This is a translated work. Unamuno was a writer from Spain. But just a little context here. Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Why, yes. Oh, okay. We've got a rating from Takashi already. So I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. But hi, yes, I'm Sarah Ray Werner. I am a writer and podcast producer living in the Midwestern United States. I'm drinking some tea and talking with my friend Asa here about literature. And I'm super excited to dive in today. I'm not sure where this conversation will go. So really looking forward to jumping into this with you. How about you?
That's a theme. I'm Asa Merritt. I wrote a series for Audible called 6 Sermons, starring Stephanie Shue from Everything All Everywhere All at Once. If you saw that, my background's in screenwriting, but now I'm pursuing fiction, short fiction in particular, which is why Sarah and I started this story club to learn. So that's what I'm up to, is writing short stories all the time. So we're going to get into this. We're going to get into the story, but I did want to check in, Sarah. How's the writing week going?
Ooh, this has been a rough one. I know last week I was like, hooray, I'm back into it. But I think that it's weeks like this that it's good to remember that it's never, well, it's never up forever. It's also never down forever. And I feel like we're on a roller coaster, but the roller coaster itself isn't moving. It's just us on the roller coaster. And so I'm having I'm having a struggle week. And I have ADHD, and the distraction this week has just been rough. And so what I've been doing is, as a full-time writer, I have not only my writing to do, but also a ton of admin stuff. And so on weeks like this, on days like this, hopefully the whole week won't be like this, I get my admin stuff done. I sign up for booths at conferences. I do our bill paying. I do our bookkeeping. I prep for Story Club, and I work on other projects. So it's one of those weeks. But how about you?
It's been the roller coaster. We're definitely climbing.
Are you good?
We're climbing. If the high is the high, I mean, it depends. A descent of the roller coaster is full of joy. I
That's
love that
true.
metaphor, by the way, that we are riding it. We are not the roller coaster. But it's been a good writing week. I do these little videos every morning, Monday morning, on my YouTube channel, where I go live and kind of just announce my goals for the week and talk about what I'm going to set out to do. And what I said this week was a really simple, specific thing, where I said I just wasn't going to sign in to work until 9 a.m. I have this new part-time job. 9 a.m. is obviously super early, but the team I work with are on the other side of the world. So they're well into their day. So I always have the temptation to get to work sooner. And honestly, that one little shift has given me these little windows of writing in the AM. And I'm like, okay, this is good. There's other things that can be changed, but this is good. Yeah, so that's my writing week.
I love it. Well, and there's always going to be other things that you can change. Like there will always be a million factors, but I love that you took this step. That's like, for me, it feels like fighting anxiety. I don't know if that's how it feels for you, but like the anxiety that like I have to get in and like resolve this tension from work that's been building in my head overnight. How are you doing this? That's just my quick question here before we jump in, is just sheer willpower or
That's what I was going to say. I think it's like, we have finite willpower. We all know this. My willpower, it's like, this is where it's going this week. It's like
good.
one simple thing. It's like resist until 9 a.m. That's how. Welcome everyone. Mateo is here. Hello everyone. Welcome. Takashi is eager to write about this story. We have several Spanish speakers who join these story clubs, adding a rich perspective, especially to pieces in translation. Takashi says, my rate comes from the fact this is one of the few examples to see science fiction written in Spanish. This genre is so English-centric. It's good to see other examples. I want to hear more about that.
Yes.
Or hopefully we'll have opportunities to speak more about that. That is something that is mentioned in the introduction to this piece.
It is.
So.
It is. And very specifically so. I believe that the folks who put this together, Anne and Jeff Vandermeer, are both, sort of white cis het folks, but it was very important to them that other voices be included. And I think it's really important to understand why that is and what that impact is. So, wow, Takashi, yes, thank you for sharing that with us.
So, as we get into this here, Sarah, before we analyze, learn, etc., do you want to give us a paraphrase of this story?
I do. Those of you who have been with us for a while, you may remember we read something called Sultana's Dream, and this reminded me a lot of that. So it is another, you may be getting tired of these, another conte philosophique, which, if you're joining us for the first time, is really a fable told in a sort of offset journey. It's more of a philosophical exercise than a narrative tale. So there's not really characters in a beginning, middle, and end so much as it is, here's a really interesting idea that I want to explore. So basically, our narrator here, and it's interesting because our narrator is telling the story in the words of someone who claims to actually have experienced this. Obviously, they're both fictional. But I thought that extra distance was interesting, and maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit. But basically, the narrator tells the story of this friend who finds himself lost in the desert, dying of thirst. All their other friends are dead. They crawl toward an oasis, and there's water there. It's an actual oasis. It's not a mirage. They drink the water, and then fell asleep and, quote, awoke changed utterly. And they awaken into this train station, and there's no people there. They get on the train, they go into town. There's no people in the town. Everything is automated. So everything from sitting down at a restaurant in a hotel, like an automated menu brings you your food. Everything is like, I don't know. I had this idea of like Jetsons kind of 1950s super effective house thing. But yeah, there's museums. There's all sorts of things, paleontology and all that. There's a concert. There's a movie theater where the instruments play themselves. So yeah, there's no people in Mechanopolis. It is all automated. And then once sorry, I one more second. Once he realizes that he is in a city of nobody, he kind of goes a little crazy, jumps in front of a train, and wakes back up in the desert and is saved by some nomadic people who he then celebrates with the joy of being a human among other people again. The end.
Perfect. Yeah, okay. No, I was only going to ask you the end because I thought for a hot second that you weren't going to tell the end. So that's an amazing, effective, concise summary. So Sarah sent me just some behind the scenes here. Sarah sent me a text message, I don't know, over the weekend or something, when you had read this, and you said, I'm about done with the conte philosophiques. This, enough is enough. Let's move on. I entered, the only decent thing about this story is it's not that long, so I entered into that. I know I'm kind of showing you, putting you out,
but
that's fine. It's in a good spirit. So I kind of went into this story girded for disappointment,
Mm.
expecting sort of a struggle as a read. So that wasn't fully my experience. So I am curious to engage and hear a little bit more about why this was challenging, or whether that was just sort of hyperbole in a text message, or whether it's just like, okay, three contes philosophiques in a row, enough is enough. What engendered that like knee jerk reaction?
Yeah, that's such a good question too, because I think that if I had read this on its own in a vacuum without having read three contes philosophiques in a row, I think this would have had a different impression on me, definitely. Um, so I think that's largely what it is. However, I also, and we can talk about this in a little bit, it is very short. Um, but I'm really wondering if there's anything more to it than like rise of machines and extermination of all humanity equals bad. Like I didn't know if there was anything that I would take away beyond that from this. And so I'm not saying there's nothing else there. I'm saying I'm excited to find out what that is. So yeah, so the three of these in a row, um I think it's also interesting, and we can talk about this in a little bit as well. I couldn't help but think of Caves of Steel by Isaac Asimov, which is a work that wouldn't come around until 40 years after this was written. So I think that this definitely has, this shows that it has had an impact on some of the biggest names in sci-fi and speculative fiction as well. So,
Yeah, to that point, just a quick hit on context and history. Some of these stories for this collection are chosen for their sort of macro significance, not so much the stories themselves. And he does point out both that there is a narrower tradition of Spanish language sci-fi. That's one reason why it's significant. And this machine forward dystopia narrative, this is a very early expression of that. This is a 1913 story, and so in the same way that H.G. Wells invented the impact genre in the first story we did on this story club, The Star, we have a kind of foundational piece there. So I think it is valuable to kind of like give it credit in that regard, that it's like, even if this particular story didn't hit us with a bat, emotionally, it's significant.
right. And
Yeah.
I think it is significant to just say that like we're not providing answers here. Like what we're saying is not how the story is or should be interpreted. This is just our hot takes on these stories that we're reading week after week, and they are purely subjective.
Just like
So
85-degree takes. These
yeah,
are,
yeah.
these these are takes.
They're
These are our
warmish.
takes. Yeah,
Yes,
warmish,
yes.
warmish takes. Well, I guess let's see. I think, to your question, what is this besides the assertion that machines are bad, machines take over? I do think there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on here, because not only this isn't like a Terminator situation. The
Right.
machines in this story are really delightful. They provide fresh breakfast. They provide museums, so that this individual felt that all the art, the masters that he had seen in his life, were actually replicas, and that these ones were the real ones, right? I mean, we had a city that provided the news on his doorstep. Everything worked. It was glorious. It was clean. And so this isn't like it's a dystopia, but on paper, as it were. Oh, we have a great comment in here.
Hmm.
Okay. Yes. Great. 1 second, Takashi. On paper, this is an amazing world. So, all right. Takashi, it is a counter proposal to realism as an artistic current. I read the story in Spanish, but something that was amusing is the use of present continuous, the gerund, or gerundios in Spanish. The fact is, stray for so long is because of this.
So I think that is so when we're talking about the present continuous, is that like I walk into the hotel rather than the narrator walked into the hotel? Is that what
I,
that tense
I
is?
think it's I'm walking. I'm
Oh,
walking into
okay.
the hotel. I
Oh,
think.
I
I
think you're
think
right. Because Jaren,
I'm
yeah,
walking
okay.
into a hotel and I'm watching the art or I'm looking at this and this. That does radically change the experience of the story. In fact, I'm
Yeah,
shocked that it wasn't translated that way. If in fact I'm recalling
right.
the
Well, no,
present
because
continuous correctly.
it's in past tense because it says like I saw a splendid building whose sign read hotel. Like so it is in the past first person tense. So an interesting
I mean,
maybe decision by the
this is
translator.
again, I'm not sure. So maybe Takashi, that's what I think the present continuous is, but I'm not positive. I'm not positive about that. But that is really interesting for sure. That's an
Yeah.
interesting observation.
Well, and it brings up another point too, AC. You were just talking about how this isn't like what makes something a utopia, what makes something a dystopia. And you're right. I was really charmed by, I don't know, I was imagining like this little like diner bot and like it was really charming and sweet and delightful. And they seem to be earnest, these robots, these machines. I think it says actually that they have pity, they have the capacity to feel empathy. Um and I don't know. I think that to me was interesting. What we don't know is what happened to the humans, if they were phased out because they were like, not useful anymore, not necessary, if they all died in an event like the star in H.G. Wells. If there was an extinction event or if it was violence, I don't think we find out, but it's strange how something beautiful and perfect drives the narrator to madness enough
Yeah.
to take his own life.
Right. Yeah, I mean, for me, that was actually what made this story super interesting is the tension between this idyllic utopian sort of
Mm.
society, this utopian city, and the utter despair. And the sort of, to me, the kind of thesis there that's a little more subtle, a little more interesting than a lot of dystopia stories is that the only requisite for dystopia is isolation and loneliness, that you can have
Mm.
everything you need. You can have the fine breakfast. You can have, beautiful, cleanest city you've ever been to in the world. But if you're alone, then you will suffer. And essentially, you will go insane, even,
Yeah.
you know?
He even talks about, and I don't know if this is in the original Spanish, but on page 39 of our copy, um, he's watching a movie and in a cinema with phonographic accompaniment. And he says, my soul shrank to think that I was the only spectator. He says, my soul shrank. And I think that says a lot. And then in the end, when he, essentially heals himself by joining into song and dance and conversation with the people who save him, I think there really is something there. And is it the place itself? Is it the loneliness? Yeah, what's going on? What's going on with that?
And to what extent is this, okay, wait, Nick, comment here from Nick.
Oh, yep.
Thanks, Nick. Present continuous is what you said. It pops up in screenwriting a lot.
Mm.
Some people, for some reason, frown on writing. Jim is talking when Wendy walks in rather than Jim talks, Wendy walks in. Okay. So we're talking about the present. There's a couple different ways to do that in English. Bottom line is we're telling the story in the present in the way that screenplay, action directions are told. Thank you, Nick, for that contribution. That's really useful context. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, to what extent is this person, his sort of relationship to loneliness, his relationship to society versus kind of a larger statement, a larger allegorical statement about people?
Right.
You referenced at the beginning the distance between
Mm.
the person who introduces this story and the alleged narrator, which is still the person who introduces the story, telling the story in his words. Presumably, the person who introduces the story, we're referring to folks at the beginning of Mechanopolis. If you didn't get a chance to read it, there is a brief introduction from some outside character who says, once upon a time, I had a friend and he told me this story and I'm going to tell him his story. So presumably that person is still in society.
Mm-hmm.
At some level, that person doesn't share the same sentiment,
Yes. Yes, and it does say
So,
that the person who experienced this Mechanopolis, they now live in an isolated spot equipped with as few machines as possible, which would lead me to believe that it's the machines that really traumatized them. And it's interesting that they are living in an isolated spot. Is it isolated in the sense that there are no machines? Is it isolated in the sense that there aren't a lot of humans there either? I don't know. I guess maybe maybe part of what frustrated me with this story is that I ended up with more questions than answers. Like I ended up, it's such a short story. And if I wrote out the list of questions that I had after reading this, it would be longer than the story was.
right,
I
right.
think that's, yeah, that was part of my, yeah, part of my, I think, initial misunderstanding with like reading this text.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. What else stuck out for you? Oh, here's a little like small thing in advance of tomorrow. By the way, everybody, on Thursdays at the same time, Sarah and I run a horror story club, and tomorrow we are tackling none other than Call of Cthulhu by H.P. Lovecraft. Iconic text. If you want to come back for that, you're more than welcome to join. I bring him up
Ooh,
because
yes.
I was reading an essay about Lovecraft and the way he writes, and he has this tendency in his fiction to say that something's undescribable and then goes on to describe it. So that's exactly what happens here. So when this person gets to the city, they say, I cannot describe the city. No human mind can even dream of the magnificent, the lavishness, the comfort. And then goes
Pers-
on to give us an entire, like a thorough portrait of the urban landscape. So I'm just curious. We're going to see this tomorrow in Lovecraft. I don't remember what I read about that in that essay, but to me, there's some little key there in asserting that something's undescribable and then describing it. Do you have
yeah.
any kind of like sort of
Yeah.
intuition around that
My
structure?
my gut reaction is that it is a sort of disclaimer kind of by the author slash narrator. Like, okay, now, you really had to be there, but here's what it was like. I think it really just serves to say, I'm going to describe it to you, but you're still not going to get the full effect of it. Like I kind of took it as like a disclaimer from the writer slash narrator.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm on board with that. I think and maybe that's just a characteristic of sort of speculative fiction, fantastical fiction across the board, is that like, listen, everybody, this we're just going to another world. There's no way you can possibly explain this. This is inconceivable given our lived experience. I'm going to do my best to kind
Right.
of give you a taste.
That being said, right.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring up Lovecraft because I was thinking the reaction that the friend who has this experience and then goes to live in isolation. In this beginning paragraph here, the setup in italics, it says, this friend who went to Mechanopolis, when he told me he was still trembling at the memory of what he had seen, and it caused such a strong impression on him that he later left society. I mean, we see that in Lovecraft too, is the lasting trauma that these story experiences have.
I love,
And
yes.
yeah,
Great point. Great point. It's a sort of a classic kind of mini arc of a character. They
yeah,
start at point A and they end at point Z. What is remarkable here for the length of this story, I guess point A was he was already close to death.
yes,
So maybe it's actually more like a X to Z. But still, that's the arc, right? That they end worse than they start. And yes, I think that is a trademark of
mm,
Lovecraft. There's a
yeah,
lovely conversation happening in the comments. If you're just joining us, welcome. This is Story Club. Lots of great conversation there's a community, there's a Discord, and it leads to things like the current conversation that's happening in the comments around the erundio, the present continuous tense, as we call it in English. I really appreciate y'all. I'm not going to get into it, but I'm so glad it's happening.
If I can, real quick,
Yeah.
I think there is one thing that Takashi pointed out, that this tense makes the story feel like a never-ending loop, which I think is relevant in that it sort of keeps us in the story. It keeps us traveling on that train through Mechanopolis. It keeps us living within the story. So I think that's what I wanted to say about that. And I think that that's another reason of why it's effective. So, okay.
Yeah,
Tangent over.
that is a really cool conception of this story.
Yeah.
Thanks, Takashi. Okay, so any other kind of details that stuck out to you, Sarah?
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious if there was for you, if you were in this situation, would you have a similar reaction? Like if you were in a city like this, and maybe it's different because this takes place in, or it was written in 1913, it maybe takes place shortly before that. Um, upon finding yourself in Mechanopolis, do you think you would have this same, very traumatized, very extreme reaction that the narrator does?
Yeah, I think I would. I'm going to speak a little bit about suicide here, if
Oh,
that's a
yes.
sensitive topic for anybody. But I think particularly if I was an individual that had a predilection to despair, a predilection for self-harm,
Mm.
this individual got very close to killing themselves before arriving at this city,
Mm.
right? This person was not capable of solitude from the jump. They found themselves in the desert alone. They had lost his fellow, the folks on the journey with him. And, we have here at the beginning, when I was prepared to try to kill myself by holding my breath, which I want to talk about because we all
Because that
know that
doesn't,
that's
that's like what
ridiculous.
3-year-olds do. Okay.
Or by scraping out a shallow grave to bury myself in that terrible earth, I lifted my failing eyes and thought I saw a patch of greenery in the distance. It must be a mirage, I thought, but I dragged myself toward it. So this person was on the cusp of ending their life, suicide. It's almost a situation where it's like their body fought stronger than their mind. It's like our bodies are programmed to survive. So this person already was not equipped psychologically, or potentially less equipped than others, to be in a situation without any kind of society, without any kind of companionship. And I'd say the clause of this story that actually I starred most dramatically is in the last paragraph. He's describing being back, having survived. And ever since then, I've developed a true hatred of what we choose to call progress, and even of culture itself. So and I look everywhere for someone who is like me, a man like me, who laughs and cries just as I cry and laugh. So it's like this individual is predisposed to suffer when
Boy.
alone, and so I think there's a unique psychology at play. If I were in their shoes, I mean, I think the terminus of loneliness is suicide eventually, right? I do think that you live long enough, and if you're alone, it's hard to maintain. But I do think it's also significant that this individual, I mean, look, it was already on the mind. They were primed,
Lisa, I appreciate you saying that so much. I came into this story and I even have a note at the end, like, why Oasis stuff? You've just explained why. It shows us who this character is going into this situation and why they were driven to, oh, that's so interesting. Thank you. I didn't understand initially, like, why was all this stuff there about, dying of thirst in the desert and the mirage? And obviously, they're two halves of a whole, and I didn't understand that first half. Significantly, how that first half was setting up what happens in Mechanopolis, where the robots are cheerful and there is music and there are museums and there is quote unquote culture.
Yeah, it's actually kind of uncannily parallel. Like the word count preceding the first attempt at suicide in the first paragraph is very close to the number of words after the back end. The story begins and ends with failed suicide attempts.
Wow.
And what's interesting is like there's really no explanation whatsoever why the latter also did not end his life. He gets hit by the train and just like that, he's back at the Oasis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, once again at the Oasis. So, I wonder what that's all about, right? It's like you can't escape it, I guess, at some level. If it's a metaphor, if it's a conte philosophique, if it's an allegory, it's like you can try your best to free yourself from this lonely world, but you're not going to achieve it.
And maybe you can only, the freedom that you're looking for is really only found with other like-minded people. It's not even in the culture that people create, because even with these museums, even with the movie theater and the concerts, all these things that we create to be culture, that's all empty. It's all empty and meaningless and soulless. And it's actually, again, I can't get over that phrase. My soul shrank to think that I was the only like human here, and like how we become lesser if we're not surrounded by humans, like other people like us.
Yeah, but then that weird thing though is that other thing I was emphasizing in my little reading there of the last paragraph is that the sort of antidote for this person is one person,
Is one person,
an individual, right? And in fact, who saves him is a single. Oh no, I guess there are several Bedouin. I started walking and came across the tent of some Bedouin.
Well, he says where I met one of them.
True. I embraced him in tears. How well we understood one another, even without words. They gave me food. They cared for me. So, right, there is this reintegration of society, but it does sort of coalesce around an individual. And then at the very end, for sure, that choice of language, like a person, a man, it's interesting.
He's looking for his own, like another Bedouin, another, I don't know if we want to say soulmate, another person to like connect with on. He talks about laughing and crying with this person and really sharing some of the like highest heights and deepest depths of humanity with another person. Yeah. There's a lot more going on here than I gave it credit for, and I would like to rescind the harsh words that I said earlier. I think that the three contes philosophiques in a row. Okay, this is me showing my immaturity. I was like, come on, when are we getting to the space lasers? When really this is teaching me what so much speculative fiction is about, which is the human experience in all of these different, through all of these different lenses. Like this is, my mind is like 180 degrees now about this story. And I kind of want to reread it.
It's interesting. And I did do my little twice read through thing, and I did catch what I think are some critical clues in that second read. Going back to that, I tried to kill myself by holding my breath.
Yeah, tell me your thoughts on that.
Okay, well, I think it's just in line with what we've learned from some of these other stories where there's like clues or guidance in the initial paragraph to the reader being like, okay, this is how you should engage with this. And that's silly. It's like you said, that's like something that like kids try on a playground,
Right. Well, or like if they want something in a store and you won't buy it for them, I'm going to hold my breath until I die.
Yeah,
it's like, okay,
yeah, exactly.
Okay, kiddo. Right.
So to me, that was a signal that I can't fully trust this narrator. I just need to engage with this. It's a little bit like, how much can I take at face value, which is interesting because you're already in a speculative universe. So it's like, we're definitely not dealing with reality. anyway. But then
Right.
we're also dealing with a deluded person in this non-reality reality, you know?
Yeah. Oh,
So yeah,
layers upon layers.
layers
I
upon
love this.
layers. Um, we've got some great comments coming in.
We do.
Uh, okay, Takashi, it's not only a cautionary tale of progress, but also a thesis on humanity's need of self-preservation.
Hmm.
60 Hangers, welcome to the conversation.
Hello.
Felt very current, as
Mm,
if what AI could bring.
mm.
Same. Nick Coleman continues. The human experience is great, but so are space lasers
Thank you, Nick. That's
and
validating. And
aliens.
aliens.
Okay, this is a great team.
Oh, that's
Aliens
fantastic.
indeed. Okay, great. Well, I'm sure we're going to get to aliens sooner rather than later
Oh,
here.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Well, and we already have, like, if we're, we already had The Martians from The Star by H.G. Wells. Um, I want to go back to 60 Hangers talking about AI. And we won't get into all of this. There's a long history of artificial intelligence in speculative fiction, especially sci-fi. But I think what feels very current to me about this is what we're currently dealing with what we're presently calling AI. So we're talking about LLM, large language model trained algorithms, which I actually saw an article this morning that there is an AI company that is pushing out 3,000 podcast episodes a week. They're all AI generated. And I think that it's interesting to look at what happens when culture is created without purpose, without reason. Like, why are these robots putting on this
Mm,
concert?
right.
And
Yeah. Well,
who are
yeah.
the
Why? Right.
if they're not used to having a human there, and why how does this hotel have food? Um, why does the hotel exist? Who does it house? Who is it? Who is this place? Who is Mechanopolis for? And I really think that these robots going through the motions and like creating empty shells of art, void of humanity, I think is I don't know if that's initially what the author intended to do with that. But I think that that brings so much relevance. Yeah, 3,000 a week is a crazy amount, Mateo. To, what we're calling AI slop today. Um, I was looking at some of the reviews there's a knitting podcast that's put out by this thing, and it tells you to knit in such a way that you're actually like tangling your yarn. Like it walks you through a step by
Ooh,
step that
write
doesn't
that
work.
story.
Right. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate you, 60 Hangers, bringing that up. Um, because, what is the use of going through the motions? This AI company that's making these 3,000 a week is for money because the shows have ads in them. And then ads bring money to the creators. So they're farming this for ad money. So yeah, so
Well, okay.
yeah,
I think we get some articulation of why by connecting these cultural sites to paleontology.
go
It seems
on.
like, well, it seems like that some of the sites within this world and within Mechanopolis exist to preserve what human culture was,
Yes.
right? That's why we have these paintings from the masters. That's why we have these sort of instances of quote unquote high culture. We have fine dining, and this explicit reference to paleontology suggests to me that that is some motivation, which is interesting because that is a sort of three-dimensional idea that
Mm.
any sort of manifestation of LLMs today fail to have, right? There's not an interest in preserving what was, it's
Mm.
creating what's new. There's no
Mm.
there's no sort of cultural consciousness happening in any sort of deliberation of contemporary AI.
That's
So,
so good. Yep.
you know, but it's still weird it's still weird. Like the service element
Yeah, I
is
know.
strange. It's not just a museum. It's set up to accommodate this person.
Well, and it says, it explicitly says, the Museum of Paleontology existed in order to study the products of the human race that had lived on this earth before the machines had supplanted them. And it says it exists in order to study. Well, who's doing the studying? Like, are the robots doing the studying? How involved in this culture are the robots? Are the machines? I don't really get a sense of that.
Well, maybe just, I'm not sure, but maybe that's just in there to help establish that in the world of Mechanopolis,
Mm,
humans are gone.
and have
You
been
know,
supplanted.
just to kind of like make sure, in case you were wondering, this is a future where there aren't people.
Mm.
So per Sultana's Dream,
Mm.
another story we read here in Story Club on a Wednesday. Is this real? Is
Mm.
this a dream? This individual is dying in the desert. And then, first of all, is that real? Dying in the desert, gets kicked to this Mechanopolis where the machines run everything, and then gets kicked back to the oasis.
Mm.
Has he seen the future? Has he had a nightmare of which this is his personal future he's going to try to avoid? What do you think?
Boy. Oh, you have sparked another thought. In addition to the other one that like lives in here. So I now have two thoughts in my head.
Love that.
No, I have another thought, and that is, do we believe the narrator about this like dying in the desert, finding an oasis situation? And it strikes me, you saying that, it strikes me that that is yet another, I don't know if I want to call it fantastical, but like it's just as foreign to us as readers. Like being in the middle of a desert with no water, like dying in a desert and coming upon an oasis, like even that feels fantastical to me. And so I'm wondering if it's metaphorical, if this person was like dying in a desert of loneliness, or
Mm.
is feeling like a drought of the soul, and I'm not saying that is the interpretation. It just sparked that idea in my mind that that's how this person, maybe this the friend of the narrator, that's how this person thinks about their experience. So,
Possibly. Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting. The reference to Bedouin, I think, is also important because there were very few references to our world,
mm,
and I think the Bedouin, these are nomadic people in North Africa,
as far as I'm aware, I didn't
northern.
look it up. I associate with like Egypt, sort of
Yeah.
northern Africa. Yeah.
Okay. So that's consistent with the trackless desert from
Yeah.
where they start. And just by, this is like classic close reading stuff, just by identifying the Bedouin as Bedouin,
Mm,
we kind of know that this narrator is not Bedouin,
mhm.
you know? So what are they doing in the desert? A lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah. Like
I
I
want to,
said, that
yeah,
list
that list.
is
I want to
long.
honor these comments here. And if I missed a couple in the mix, I'm sorry. Y'all are really propelling the dialogue. So I've missed a couple.
It's great. You're
Mateo,
all great.
I've seen so many how to prompt AI to write your book, and it feels so dystopian. No comment / all the comments. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Takashi, this feels like a perfect cookie cutter reality. That's frightening. It almost
Mm,
feels like a dream. How
mhm.
perfectly organized the entire city is brings that dystopian atmosphere,
Ooh,
almost
like
like
a
an Alice in
Stepford
Wonders.
Wives. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Stepford
Or
Wives.
like, have you read A Wrinkle in Time, where they go to the suburb and like all the children are bouncing the ball with like exactly the same rhythm?
That sounds sick. I have
It's
not.
so,
I
oh my
have read
gosh.
Stepford Wives, which I love.
Okay. Which I haven't. So we need to
Oh, it's
switch.
so
I'll
good.
read Stepford Wives. You read A Wrinkle in Time. They're so good. But
Yes.
yeah, yeah, Alice in Wonderland vibes too. I haven't read that. I've only seen the Disney movie because I'm basic. But in Alice in Wonderland, is it a fantasy, or is it set up as like this is a metaphor for this and this?
Good question.
Okay, so
I
I
feel
don't have
like
an
the
answer.
latter,
Okay.
but I don't know that work either. Well,
Okay. We'll just have to add that to the ongoing list. Oh, Takashi.
A Wrinkle in Time is one of my favorite books, Sarah. So let's turn to what can we take away from this
Mm.
as writers, Sarah? What's inspiring you here? Are you seeing specific things that you want to kind of experiment with in your own work?
Yeah, I'm again. Oh, MJ Nairn says Alice is dreaming. So maybe that's also a conte philosophique in a way. It's a dreamt journey. It has fable elements. The Mad Hatter, the Queen. Interesting.
It feels clearly bookended,
Yeah.
demarcated in the way that a lot of these other stories do.
Yeah. Oh, see, okay, that's interesting too. I love this. This is just filling this is filling my brain today and my heart. Like I said, I've had a bad writing week, and things engaging in texts with all of you and with you, Asa, is just refilling my well. So thank you. I think that you asked, what am I taking away for my own writing? I think that on a larger scale, it is very interesting to me to think about worlds that aren't worlds and to think about how we experience things. And I'm not 100%, I'm not going to be 100% articulate with this because it's something I've just been thinking about during our discussion here. But, looking at what are the worlds that we're building saying? Like this has a double world of the desert and then Mechanopolis, and even a third world of like the real world. And that is a very intriguing concept to me. And I'm wondering, like, how can we apply the world as mindset in our own work? So just a thought.
I like that. Yeah.
How about you?
Well, I think I just find myself giving my characters and maybe by extension worlds. I haven't spent a ton of time writing foreign worlds, imagined worlds,
Oh,
too much credit. I just like, again, going back to that line of like, and I try to kill myself by holding my breath. I've rarely written characters that like, that doesn't make any sense. And so for me, there's a little bit of inspiration there that's like, these are characters. What can we, let's go there. Let's write characters that we don't like or who are genuinely unintelligent or this or that or the third, kind of just expanding beyond my own consciousness a little bit and just kind of like really trying to experiment by crafting different humans that are really different.
You know what? This story caught me off guard a little bit because yeah, I took that part of it for granted and I didn't look. Yeah, I didn't look any deeper. Sorry, I guess I have three whole ideas in my head now. So this is
That's
great.
great.
So
No,
this is great. Takashi has a really good comment, and I actually we looked at in the setup for the story. Anna and Jeff Vandermeer have done a great job in giving us like these brief bios about the authors, and it was very interesting to me that Miguel de Unamuno wrote very little science fiction. Like this is the one of the very few sci-fi stories he wrote. And Takashi says he's well known for writing thesis novels. And I don't know. I think that's interesting that you can become a foundational figure in speculative sci-fi fiction without having that be like your main genre, without having that be your thing. Like he just,
I mean, right now you could be saying more about the power of anthologies.
Oh, I could.
Editors. Do you know what I mean? Like who knows how few people would have read an English version of this if Jeff Vandermeer didn't put a stamp on it and put it in the big book of science fiction,
Yeah, curators. Like who's curating what we read? Who curates? And that even goes to, who was allowed to publish in those Weird Tales magazines through in the early 1900s. Like who was allowed to publish, whose stories got told. And I think, again, that's why Anne and Jeff Vandermeer are so focused on highlighting the pieces that were gate kept out of the system.
Definitely.
So I think that's so good. Ooh, we have a take too here.
Takashi says, my take is to use flat characters as thesis for larger, even more complex concepts.
Yeah. I think that's something that we see. First of all, oh, I have so many thoughts about flat characters. Um, they can be really useful. And like now that I think about it, I cannot stop thinking about Alice in Wonderland now. So thank you for that. Alice is a very flat character. The experience of Alice is our experience in Wonderland. Alice is just a ew, this is going to sound gross, a skin suit that we step into. I regret saying that. Alice is what we might call a Mary Sue. Not as egregious as a Mary Sue, but an audience placeholder, an audience avatar. Um, and so, yeah, I think Takashi, if you're looking for the reader or viewer, whatever you're writing for, if you're looking for your audience to really experience the world, um, having them not filter through a character with like their own backstory and their own hopes and dreams and their own motives. If you just want that world experience, I think that's a great way to do that. And I think that would especially be effective in shorter fiction. Because I think the novel, and again, this is a hot 80% hot take, it tends to be more about character arcs and exploring motives and cause and effect. But yeah, I think that's great for a short work. Oh, that's good, Mateo. Yeah.
Do you want to read this one, Sarah?
Yeah, so Mateo says most of my experience with flat characters is in video games. Link from the Legend of Zelda, for example, is a flat character. It's purely a stand-in for the audience. And like even Link, who is, I don't know if you've ever played any of the Zelda games, Link is also fairly androgynous. Link is, I mean, Link is, of course, blue-eyed and blonde-haired. So, and in some games, pink-haired, and in some games, brown-haired. So, there's a ubiquity to Link, and I appreciate you saying that because video games are about the experience of a story. They're not so much about the inner workings of the character so much as they are about discovering the world, at least in my experience. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, I love this as like even a larger conversation. It's like
Yeah.
why we engage with stories, and sometimes some folks are there to pursue an individual's psychology to sink into another's inner life, and other times we're we want to sail the high seas with the pirates, and the experience is more focused on the external world.
External world.
And
Thank you.
generally speaking, there's exceptions, but
Yeah.
certainly in kind of the commercial array in which these genres manifest in media, the sort of more speculative, we're spending a little, the sort of the camera, as it were, is a little bit more on the external world,
Yeah.
with exceptions, of course.
Always exceptions, but
Always
that's
exceptions.
so good. That's such a good insight. This is so good. You guys, I'm so excited right now.
This is the big time. This is Story Club. I feel like we're hitting our groove, Sarah, in a big way.
I think so too.
This is week 6, I think.
Is it already?
I don't know. Something
All
like
I know
that.
is I look at this anthology. This is how far in we are. We are a sliver.
It's going to take 2 years, y'all.
I love it. I'm here.
I'm here. There's 100 stories. There's more than 100 stories. So
I'm here for it.
Let's see. I mean, to that end, should we introduce next week?
I think so. And would you like to introduce, or would you
I'll
like
take
me to?
Yes, I have not taken a gander at this until this moment. Next week, that's an announcement. Next week, we're doing Monday and Tuesday
instead of Wednesday and Thursday.
Yeah, same time. So next week, Monday, same time, we're going to be reading The Doom of Principal City by Yefim Zuzulya. This is translated by Vlad Zanevsky. So this is a Soviet era writer born in Moscow. I'm going to read the first sentence because that's something we do to tease out these next stories and get a primer. Crowds assembled on the squares and crossroads that morning, sparse and inert, unwashed, sleepy, disheveled, Hastily dressed people rushed out of their houses to wander in uneasiness about the streets and greet one another with dejected, sighing exclamations. They've come. So that's what we have in
Oh,
store for us. That's what we have in store for us.
immediately I'm thinking like roadside picnic, but like the precursor to that. So
What's that?
that is a Soviet novel by, I think it's two brothers, Arkady and Boris Stravatsky, about post aliens coming and like sorting through their trash and the very small scope of humankind. And I don't know, just the Russian scene with the Soviet scene with like alien debris and like, I don't know, I'm assuming they're coming or they've come and they've arrived and they're here is talking about aliens, but I might be extremely wrong.
We'll see.
So I'm looking forward to finding
Yes,
out.
that is one exciting feature that was introduced in the introduction of this anthology. Is often Soviet sci-fi was used as a tool to get around censorship. So maybe this is an early example of that.
Yeah, I am very excited to read it. And I'm also excited that my mind has been changed about today's story. I can't thank you all enough.
Yeah.
Like, what a great feeling to be
I
proven wrong about something, but like, it is.
I wonder if at some level I was like, I'm gonna find the story that, you know, just the disclaimer, you know, I was like, okay, well, got to find something here.
I love it.
So
I
I'm
love
glad.
that you
I'm
did
really
that
glad to hear
because
that.
by doing that, I left some gaps in there and then like you just I don't know, provided more of the context. You filled that in. It was just so nice to like experience the story. I mean, and this is maybe appropriate for the theme, experience the story in isolation and then experience the story in a group with like-minded humans. It was so much more meaningful. So look
I
at
love
that.
that.
Full
Gosh,
circle.
that's a beautiful thought. That is a
Full
beautiful
circle.
thought.
Well, and
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
speaking of our horror story for tomorrow, if you haven't read it yet, we're reading The Call of Cthulhu by H.P. Lovecraft. Asa, if you go to Asa's YouTube channel, Asa did a live 1.5 hour reading. Why are you? Oh, you're. It was
No,
great.
yeah. No, it was a lot of fun. We did
It
have a
was
ton of
great.
fun.
It was.
We
I
did
was
have a
there
ton
the
of
whole
fun.
time.
If you
And
want to
again,
be, yeah, if you want to be read to and you want me to be the person reading to you, there is a reading of Call of Cthulhu on my channel. That is all true. If you're just in the mix and want to deepen your participation, understanding, vibes, we've got a Discord going. We'll put it. Both of us will put it here in the comments so everyone sees it. And typically, Sarah and I also write on Fridays. The timing is off. I'm going to be on the road both this Friday and next Friday, so we're going to have to defer the writing. But Sarah, you also do writing streams. Do you have any coming up that you want to share?
I do. If you guys want to join me tonight, 7 p.m. Central, so that's 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, on my YouTube channel and on my Twitch, you can find me. I do a 2-hour write along, and we get together, we talk a little bit about the art of writing, and then we just write together in community. Bring your project, bring a cup of tea, join us. It's a little different from the Friday streams, a little different vibe. This is
cozy. It's
It
cozy.
is. It's cozy. I try to keep it cozy. I encourage warm beverages and blankets. And so, if you'd like to be a part of that, join me live tonight on my YouTube and Twitch channels. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Asa.
Yeah, of course. Cool. Well, everybody, come with your big, bold thoughts on Call of Cthulhu tomorrow. Sarah and I will be coming with ours. Yeah.
I have thoughts.
I have thoughts. All right. Bye,
All right,
everybody.
friends. Thank you and goodbye for now. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.